What's up, guys, and welcome to Press A repeatedly. Justin Tomasello here with Chris Gold.
Hello, everybody.
Chris, do you have any irrational fears?
I'm afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of things that live under my bed.
Those are pretty rational. I'm talking like irrational. Like, I just kind of threw this at you. So I'll start. Okay, I have two major irrational fears that are completely irrational. The first one, let me set this scenario for you. I'm walking with a friend, okay? Let's say we're hiking or something, and we're near a cliff, and that friend, like, stumbles or the ground beneath him breaks, and they fall, but they're hanging, like, they catch themselves, but they're hanging, like, action movie style by their fingertips off the side of the cliff, and I have to pull them up, and I'm not strong enough to pull them up, and then they just fall and die.
No, I think that's pretty rational.
I don't know why I think about that a lot. I know there's that whole thing of like, what do they call that? Like the maternal strength, where like the example is if a mother flips her car and the baby's in it, like she has enough power to lift the car because of like the anxiety running through her.
The adrenaline.
The adrenaline.
The adrenaline, yes. Yeah, they get like the burst of superhuman mom strength, and they're able to lift the car over their heads to save their child. How many cliffs do you go walking alongside in your daily routine?
Well, honestly, I was by one with friend of the podcast Dave a couple of weeks ago, and it was a steep drop, pretty far, and I started having that irrational fear again. But yeah, and I would like to think that, Chris, if you were hanging off a cliff, that my maternal instincts would kick in, and I would get that rush of adrenaline and be able to lift you off of there.
You are just like a mother to me, so I would expect absolutely nothing less than you saving my life, especially in a situation where I am like actually afraid of heights. So if I were hanging,
no, me too. It's another,
yeah. If I were, just imagine I'm hanging by my fingertips. Justin, help me! And you're just like, like I can't.
Whoa.
All right. What's your second irrational fear?
My second irrational fear, whenever I'm driving and a guy on a bicycle is like next to me, I always get super anxious. But I have this irrational fear that they're gonna pass, like they'll still be on my side, but get like right in front of my car, and then they just hit like a pebble or something, and they completely fall on their side in front of my car, and I have like no time to react, and I just plow them over and just completely kill them, like rip them apart.
Oh God, yeah, that's that is scary. That's why bicyclists really should be banned from all roadways in America, just to mitigate that sort of scenario from ever happening.
Yeah, it's just like horrifying. I always go I like ride the brakes the whole time anytime I'm near a cyclist, and it's just one day it's gonna happen, and oh man.
I will say
that'll be the end of me.
I guess now that you've brought that up, one irrational fear that I had always had back when my dog, who he was a little white fluff ball, and he's down in Florida now. But back when he was still living up here in New Jersey, I always had an irrational fear where if I was driving home, like let's say I was coming home from work or school or from wherever, and I was driving around the house, I was always concerned that he would like somehow, some way, like he would break out of the house, like maybe someone had the door open somewhere and he got excited and he ran out into the street, and I would be terrified of potentially like running him over. That was that was always something I was always really, really cautious about. So whenever I was driving around my house, like if I had to pick up the mail or something, I always went like super slow and my eyes are like looking everywhere. Yeah, that was something I always wanted to be conscious of.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say your irrational fear was that you were walking him, and then like a giant hawk came out of the sky and just picked him up and then took off with him.
That is another one. That is another one. Now that you actually mention it, and a third one involving my dog. All of my irrational fears involve my dog in some way. The third one is I was walking him, and a car would like come by, and I'd get him out of the street, but my fear was he would somehow find his way out of the harness, and again, run out in front of the car and get hit. That was yet another irrational fear. I was very concerned for my dog. I did not want anything.
Yeah.
I did not want anything to happen to him because he's small and extremely helpless. To you, the average listener at home who has no idea of my dog, he is literally a white fluff ball. He could not possibly be more defenseless as a creature. So
Yeah, you almost want to throw yourself in front of a car and to save the dog. I mean, any good dog owner would do that, right?
of course, yeah, if you're not willing to sacrifice your life and the lives of others to save your pet, then you don't deserve a pet.
Sensing a lot of car related and a lot of dog related irrational fears from
Yes.
us.
Yes. And I guess bringing this back around, Justin, why the talk of irrational fears?
Yeah, I really have no way how to segue this into what we're actually talking about. This is just a random thought in my mind during the week.
Oh, no problem. Well, maybe you can say another irrational fear of yours is video game leaks.
Yeah, okay. There you go. You're learning.
All right.
Maybe not a fear exactly of mine, but a fear of a lot of people that work on video games is that information of something that they're trying to hide is leaked and spread all over the video game news media. And today we're going to have our first ever PAR debate where we debate whether or not video game news sites should cover a leak of some video game information.
Yes, we are going to be taking both sides of this rather contentious issue. Justin, you are against news sites reporting on these leaks. I am for these sites reporting on the leaks, and I remember we were just kind of having this conversation, off the show. I think a couple months back when there was a few video games, a lot of information being leaked, and the conversation started to get really heated. And that's why I remember we kind of paused it and said, we should bring this out onto the show. And so now here we are, finally, about to have our great debate.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a little topical, too. I mean, there is a news story about a lot of the Xbox One X package deals that was getting leaked this week. And, really, any week in the news, there's always some sort of leak story. So, we're going to dive into that in full a bit later. But before that, we got some games to talk about and the indie arcade. So, Chris, you want to start it out? What are you playing?
It's been a busy week, so I haven't really had a chance to play too much new. I did beat Tacoma. I sat down.
Oh, you did?
Yes. So I sat down and wrapped up the story of Tacoma, and man, that really is a really interesting, fascinating game. The story surrounding it is, it's just really well crafted. The characters are all really fleshed out. Obviously, I don't want to get too much into story details or spoilers here, but Tacoma does a really, really good job of, I guess, predicting a future necessarily where humans have to interact with AI, artificial intelligence, and
Right.
it sort of, I guess, it sort of takes things to a natural progression, assuming that everything goes out into outer space at some point, and how corporations on Earth would react to that, and the different ways that they would adapt to this future that I suppose we're all going towards. Especially when you think of the future that it foretells is kind of the present that we're living in a lot of ways, where you have a lot of jobs that have kind of left, they've been going away over the years. And a big part of that is because of how a lot of more routine jobs have started to be replaced by robots and automation. Tacoma sort of explores the world in a way where it says, okay, we've got these automated systems and we have artificial intelligence. How can they interact with one another? How can they sort of survive together? Is there a future for humans and their role in the workforce when you have robots who are willing and able to do pretty much anything? And I thought it did a really good job in exploring this idea, and also exploring the themes, I guess, of like being alone up in space, and wondering, like the ties that brings everyone on the crew together, the different relationships that they have with people who are still on Earth. I mean, a lot of the material that you can read, that you can do research on in the game, where you look up each particular character's AR record, you get a lot of backstory into each of their character, and it just really is fascinating how fully fleshed out everyone is. And man, it's hard to discuss Tacoma without discussing any of the story or character details, but
Right.
it really is a fantastic game. I definitely recommend it. You can go through the game, as we had mentioned last episode, in a full evening. So, I mean, you can pick it up real quick, play it, beat it, and yeah, it's an experience. It's definitely a game that leaves you thinking long after you're done playing it. Very similar to the experience I'd had back when I played What Remains of Edith Finch.
Right. And I know a lot of people really enjoyed the game Gone Home, which is the first game from this studio. Did you play that one at all?
I did not play Gone Home, but I'm actually looking to play it now, especially since so many games have been inspired by Gone Home, and I've enjoyed all of those games. So I'm thinking, I should probably go into the one game that started it all and see what that's about.
Right, yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people like Tacoma, but it seems that the opinion of Gone Home is a lot stronger in the fan base. That the story in that game apparently is super engaging, and the character writing is fantastic. So if you wanted to play both of these, I guess it would be smarter to start with Gone Home. Not that they're related or anything, but like, that studio's. I can't even think of it. What's the name of the studio that works on it?
It is Fulbright Studios.
Fulbright. That's it. Yeah.
Right, and Steve Gaynor, I believe, was the lead designer on both games, Gone Home and Tacoma.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, like you don't have to play one before the other, because I feel like they're each standalone stories that work on their own. It's, it's kind of like reading books. You don't have to read like one book before reading another. I mean, just dive into each story on your own time, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have said that you should play one before the other. What I meant to say was that the people seem to enjoy Gone Home more than Tacoma. Not saying that Tacoma is bad or anything, but if you wanted to check out these games, and they both are short and can be played in an evening, so yeah.
Yep. Let me see. The other main game I've been playing is Sonic Mania, of course.
Right.
So we went way in depth last episode on how great Sonic Mania is, how wonderful and inventive it is. Um, I mean, I'm just still exploring more of this game, and there's just so much good that it does for the Sonic franchise, and it's just such a solid, well-designed game all on its own. Like, it's fast, it's fun, it's colorful. The music is really cheerful and upbeat, and I mean, you just can't help but have fun while playing this game. So, I mean, what more can I really say about it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what I was going to talk about this week was more Sonic Mania. Um, I getting a bit farther in it. It's getting harder. The levels are seem to be getting longer. Specifically, Flying Battery Zone.
Oh yes, I got through Flying Battery Zone not easily. That was a very tricky zone.
I was playing over Dave's the other night, and man, that I don't know what it is, but that zone. I don't know if it's the way the routes are laid out or anything, but that zone just feels so much longer than all the other zones I've played so far. And the problem is the final boss of that zone, the Robotnik spider thing,
Yes.
is really like tough. It's kind of hard to figure out in the beginning, so you waste a couple lives just trying to figure out how to beat this thing. And then once you do figure that out, you have to get the timing and the rhythm down and everything. And I know last week we talked about how some people are complaining that when you get a game over, you have to go back to the beginning of Act 1, and there's no real, like, checkpoint system for that. And, I still think it was the right call. I like that they went back to the retro challenge of it. But, it is frustrating when sometimes you are dying just to figure out how something works. So you don't have enough lives to actually complete, the stage to beat the boss, and then you have to run through that whole level again. And like I said, flying battery zone just feels so much longer than all the other levels. So when you die at the boss and like, okay, now I have to start this whole thing all over again. It took me like 20 minutes to get to the boss fight. Like the wind is just blown out of your sails. Like we eventually beat it, but we went through it once. We got game over. We turned it off. We watched some TV or something. We went back to it, got another game over, turned it off, watched a movie, and then we went back to it again, and we finally beat it. And then we played a few more zones after that, and they all seemed a lot easier and a lot shorter than the Flying Battery Zone. So I don't know, maybe if it was just that specific zone or something, but yeah, to make it all the way to the boss of a zone and to die and have to do the whole thing over again, it's a throwback, but it's frustrating too. So I can see where the complaints are coming from.
Right. It is very frustrating, but I mean, we we talked about this last time. That's just the way the Sonic games are. That's just something that's incumbent with the series, and I mean, it's not something totally negative, like when we discussed the level design issues inherent to the Sonic series, but when it's something involving a difficulty spike like that, you kind of know what you're getting into, and I mean, it's not such a punishment in my opinion, especially if the level that you just went through was a lot of fun, and you could like blaze through it at one point. Like, it gives you an opportunity to do that again, and who knows, maybe you missed the Chaos Emerald ring to get the chance to get the Chaos Emerald. Now you've got a chance to maybe go for it again.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. But I was listening to Giant Bomb's podcast earlier today, and Ben Pack was talking about how when he was playing, he was having that issue, and again, like, it's not a big deal, but also when you don't really have a lot of time to devote to games, it can be really frustrating because, like, he just wanted to play the game and, like, get through it and kind of see everything. And, like, to have to keep doing that these large chunks over and over again. And it's almost like feeling like backtracking or something. You know, it can kind of not be fun. So I can see both sides of this story.
Right, and yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah. I wanted to know, have you noticed any glitches or anything while playing Sonic so far?
To be honest, none that I've really noticed. Everything's been running pretty smoothly for me so far.
Yeah, I've seen a few, but they're not a big deal. But the main one is, again, it's small, but I know this is everyone who has the Switch version of Sonic Mania is having this problem. When you press like the screenshot button or the go back to home menu, there is like a good 5 second delay before it actually does go back to the home menu. Which again is not a big deal and is easily something that can be fixed in an update. But it's annoying sometimes where like I've hit it and like nothing happens, so I hit it again, but then like the first time I hit it triggers, so it brings me to the home menu. But then the second time I hit it triggers again, so it brings me back into the game. Like so that kind of stuff was a little annoying. And then when we were playing yesterday, we made it to that spider boss again, and like it was like the beginning of that fight, and then it just flashed to a whole different background of an earlier part of the level for like 2 seconds, and we were like, "What the fuck?" And then it flashed back to the boss, and we were like, "Oh, thank God!" Like we got so scared that we have to do it all over again for another like the fourth or fifth time.
Oh my god, yeah. And that spider boss
Yeah.
is so frustrating. I was playing it over at Elena's, in front of Elena and Lewis, and they can vouch for this that I was letting out I was carpet bombing F bombs all over the place trying to fight this stupid spider boss. He was such a pain.
Yeah. I don't want to like spoil how you actually kill this guy, but like we were having some
Right.
problems with that too, and like
Yeah, that was
it was
annoying.
just a very frustrating fight. And the worst part was we were playing it on, Dave has it for the PS4, so like we beat it for him, but that's where I am now in my version, so I have to go back at some point and beat it all over again on mine, which is really annoying. But we were also playing one of the later levels. I think it was like the plant-based level, and an enemy had hit Dave like when he was playing, and like Sonic, like he like when he gets hit, he like goes up into the air and like has that animation where like his feet and his hands are in the air and he's like flying backwards, and he like got stuck in a tree in that pose, and all we could do was face like left or right, like back and forth, and there was nothing we could do to get out of it. We were just stuck in that pose, and like we couldn't even just wait for like an enemy to kill us because there was no enemies around us. So we just had to completely restart the level because we couldn't get out of the tree.
Wow. That's oh my god. That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure those were two like kind of freak things. Like we were playing for hours, and the rest of the time the game runs beautifully. And last week you were talking about one of the levels where Sonic stands on this rotating platform, and you see like, you see the whole rotation of his body and like his back and everything, and like that sprite work is just unbelievable. It looks so good. Like that must be a combination of like 30 different sprites of different angles of Sonic, and man, like just all these little touches of
Yeah.
movement and like even things that you only see on screen for like a second. Just looks so like exquisite. Like, man, it's such a cool thing to see that much time put into such like a small detail, but it really adds to the experience. I mean, you're not just getting a Sonic game; you're getting a great Sonic game with all these extra flourishes of stuff that wasn't capable back then, but is capable now. And it's just great. It's just great to play.
Yeah, and not even just like the sprite work, but that animation is just so smooth. Like there is no like stutter, there's no noticeable break in like what sprite is on the screen. Like everything just flows very naturally and it just looks so good. Like, oh man, everyone did just such a good job in everything about this game.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of frames in that animation, and it all it's fluid and beautiful.
So, anything else, Justin?
Aside from Sonic Mania for this week, that's it for me. So I guess let's hop right into the indie arcade.
Indie arcade.
And if you remember, last week I gave Chris the game Slimesan to play on Nintendo Switch, where you are a slime trying to get out of the belly of a worm. Chris, take it away.
So, I am slime, and I have been eaten by a worm. It's not the most ideal of scenarios to be in, but it is the situation you find yourself in while playing as Slimesan. Slimesan is very interesting in that when I first played it, I played it for the first time a couple days ago, and it reminded me a lot of Super Meat Boy, in that where you had the preset level on one screen, right? And it's designed in such a way where it's exactly like Super Meat Boy. You're kind of gliding along the ground, and as you're sliming, not walking, like sliming, you leave like this trail of green slime behind you, and you have to jump up different platforms. And it's just like Super Meat Boy again, in that you can do wall jumps and you can kind of like climb up walls by constantly like doing little wall jumps up them. There are lots of different hazards that you need to avoid that slowly are introduced into the game as you progress, and it is very, very like almost a carbon copy of Super Meat Boy, but it does
Really?
That's what I feel, yes, but it does just enough differently, I feel like, where you can't necessarily say it's a clone of Super Meat Boy, and that it has a couple differences that help it stand out.
Okay.
So, the first one and the most noticeable one is the aesthetic of the game. Super Meat Boy is, it's got really, I don't know, like, it's kind of a 2D animated style, whereas Slimesan is more of an 8-bit style. Super Meat Boy is more colorful in a way, like the colors are very bright, whereas with Slimesan, it only really has 4 main colors to work with. Kind of a
Right, it's working with that color palette, right?
yes, sort of a dark blue, white, green, and red. And these colors are more muted. They're not very bright. It's kind of they're duller shades. So it's got a little bit of a dull look to it overall. But even though it's 8-bit pixel graphics and it's only got the 4 color palettes, the art in this game is so well done and so intricate and so detailed. Like the level of creativity put on by the art team on this game is just absolutely phenomenal. Like,
oh, it's awesome.
Like when you end a game, you get kind of a close-up of Slimesan, and he has this little bird companion who accompanies him throughout the game, who is sort of like carrying Slimesan in his talons. And Slimesan, he's just looking at you, the player, like with this big, dopey, happy grin on his face because he just completed the level. And the bird is like flapping its wings, trying to keep Slimesan airborne while you're looking at the end of level, like all the stats, like how many times you died, how long it took you to get through the levels, etc. and you can see him like straining to keep Slimesan up. And it's just really really funny too. It's like, and when you reach the end of the level, in each of these screens, right, you have to go through four of them. You have to go through four of these screens to get through one level. At the end of each screen, like the first three screens will have a little arrow pointing to keep going, and that's the end point of that particular screen. But then the end point of the level, which is the fourth screen, there will be like a very tiny billboard with Slimesan's face on it, and he's kind of like flashing a thumbs up at the end of it. So okay, that's the goal right there. It's really fun in that like the game doesn't really take itself very seriously. It's I mean, it kind of knows what it is and it accepts what it is, and you just I mean, the other thing that it brought over from the obvious Super Meat Boy influence is the level of difficulty. This
Right.
is a hard game. Oh, Justin, I was letting them fly the first time I played this game, and I was screaming and swearing up a storm.
Right. So what I've gotten from when I've played Super Meat Boy is that a lot of it is you kind of have to die a lot to like nail down the rhythm of a level and to see basically where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do and how to properly time your jumps and everything. So I would imagine that Slimesan's a lot like that.
Yes, it is very timing based. You have to time your jumps perfectly. You have to figure out exactly when to jump, where to jump, and you only have a certain amount of time to get through each particular screen, because eventually this wall of worm stomach acid will start coming in from one side of the screen, and it is just going to completely engulf the entire side of the screen. And if you get caught in that, I mean, you're dead. There's no escaping it. Anything in the game that you touch that's red is an instant kill. So there are certain sections of the walls that you'll jump up. Like ordinarily there'll be maybe a white squiggle and it'll be fine, but randomly there will be red patches on the walls. You cannot touch those patches at all. Otherwise you will die instantly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the one thing that's a little bit annoying with Slimesan versus Super Meat Boy is with Super Meat Boy, the instant you died, you immediately were back at the start of the level, ready to go again. So you died, boom, you were immediately back. There was no.
Yeah, I remember noticing that when I've played, and I even like made a note of like, oh wow, that's really awesome that they do that, because it makes you want that, like, oh, one more round. Like it helps that happen, so much easier when you just like you die and you're immediately ready to go again.
Right. Now, Slimesan kind of has that, but not as immediate, I don't think. Like once you die as Slimesan, like you'll burst into lots of slimy little gooey particles, and then the level, like you'll see Slimesan like appear again, like kind of at the start of the level, but imagine like a big circle over him and you can't see anything outside the circle, and then it will zoom out real quick and then you can see the stage again. Now,
okay.
Now, like from that moment, like from the moment you die to the moment where that circle expands and you can play again, I mean, it's only about like maybe a second, maybe 2 seconds tops. But it is noticeable, and it would have been nice to, to copy that particular mechanic from Super Meat Boy also, where as soon as Slimesan dies, he just immediately appears where you started the level, rather than just kind of having to show the level all over again, like zooming out every single time.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. How how are the controls for it? Like, does it feel as tight as Super Meat Boy?
It is very tight. The controls are very, very super tight. There was never an instance in all the many, many, many times I died where I said to myself, "Ah, man, come on, that's not fair." Every single
Right.
instance was me like, "Oh, okay, I shouldn't have made that jump. I should have jumped a little bit later. I should have done this,
That's
that."
good.
Yeah, you have very tight control over how you jump and the direction of Slimesan after he jumps as he's in the air. So it's very handy. Like there was one section where there are these moving platforms and they're going very slowly across this one level, and there's like a bouncy spring on it, so you have to like keep bouncing on it. Well, these red enemies are slowly flying in from the one side, and they're not like all in a row. One of them is higher up and a little behind the others. The other one, like the lower one, is ahead of the others, and the one in the middle is behind all three. So you have to like kind of figure out, okay, when he jumps, you have to like go to the left a little bit to avoid the one, then kind of circle around and bounce up, and like you have to figure out how to jump and like bounce off the platform and avoid these enemies. It's really cool because you've got that timing mechanic, because again, that stomach acid, if you take too long, will start coming down and it will engulf the entire stage. And so like you're trying to think on your feet and trying to figure out the best way through the level. And once you do figure that out, there are rare instances where you get through a screen in your first go around, and it's so satisfying. That's such a great feeling.
Yeah, that's got to be awesome.
Now, they do switch things up a little bit by leaving sort of like a little trinket for you to find in each stage. In each of the screens, there is a green apple that you can find. Now, these green apples are ordinarily set in a part of the stage where it's like, oh, you could make the relatively easy jump over here, or you could make the trickier jump and go that way to try to get the green apple.
Come on, I never known a slime to say no to a green apple.
They are addicted to green apples, as you know. I mean, it's a staple at this point. Like rabbits love carrots, squirrels love nuts, slimes love green apples. I mean,
Of course.
this is common knowledge. So, of course, being a slime, I need to go for the green apple. Not even just because that slimes love green apples, but because green apples are a currency in the game.
Oh.
And that's because I didn't even get to the other major part about Slimesan is Slump Town.
Slum Town?
Not Slum Town, Slump Town.
Slump Town.
Yes. Slump Town is a town where you slump.
Okay.
Specifically, it's a town where you can buy move upgrades for Slimesan. You can buy different pills to give him different abilities. You can play different mini games. It's like a whole hub world that you can kind of explore, and you can just
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting that.
you can just move around the town a little bit, and just like, especially if you need a break from playing all the breakneck speed levels and like the stress and like, oh, I got to make these jumps and you're constantly dying over and over.
Right.
It's
painfully accurate.
Yeah, it's a nice place to just kind of like retreat back and say, okay, I'm just going to take a breather right here. Maybe upgrade myself a little bit and, just, catch my breath. Because that's really important for games like Slimesan and Super Meat Boy. You need a moment where you can breathe, because they're always so intense and, balls to the wall, for lack of a better phrase. You're constantly on.
Right. You could go back to our anger episode where we talk about doing the same thing over and over and failing. And sometimes when you just take a break, you can kind of go back in there and knock it out.
Yep, it's very important to have those moments in games like that, and Slimesan definitely does have that moment. It ultimately the game is a lot of fun. It is very, very difficult. It can be really frustrating at times with how hard it is, but ultimately I had fun. I liked the aesthetic. I loved how goofy the characters looked and kind of how they moved around. I didn't even mention like the first world. Like I didn't get through the first world yet, but it's the excrement fields, and the way the map is set up, like you can see the worm's body, like it kind of coils like back and forth. So there's 20 stages in each world, and I haven't gotten through them yet. So right now I'm still in the excrement fields. But then the next,
Sounds like a lovely place.
oh, it's beautiful in summertime, and
I imagine that is not true.
no,
Just roasting and rotting in the summer.
no, it's wonderful. You should absolutely go. Take your loved ones. But it's really fun. It's funny. I'm having a blast with it. So I didn't even get into the music, but just briefly, the music is really fun and jaunty and very, very cool.
Oh, that's great.
So, Justin, the shoe is now on the other foot.
Indeed it is. It is time for you to return the favor.
It sure is. And, Justin, I can't really think of any better way to reward a worm-based game than with another worm-based game. And no, it is not worms.
Whatever it is, I just hope it's somewhat easier than these past two games have been. We've had some rough couple of weeks with these games. Really been had some wake up calls.
Yeah, we've been through a bit of a gauntlet lately. With this latest game that I'm going to be giving you, though, I'm not so sure it will ease up, so to speak.
Oh boy. Okay.
Justin, the game that I'm giving you is Nidhogg 2.
Oh.
Nidhogg 2. The sequel to Nidhogg, obviously. The rules are simple. Reach the other side and kill anyone that stands in your way. Deftly parry and rend their throats, riddle their bowels with arrows, or squish their brains between your toes. The worm cares not for chivalry. Basically, the object of this game is there is a worm, I believe, that has awakened, and I think it requires a sacrifice. And all of the warriors in the land want to prove that they are the strongest in the land who are worthy to be sacrificed to this worm. So all of the warriors are killing each other, and the object of the game for you, Justin, is to kill the other warriors and prove that you are the strongest, so that way the worm will look upon you with favor and will accept your sacrifice.
Sounds bizarre. This is a game that I've heard the name. I've heard Nidhogg a lot. I've heard Nidhogg 2 because it just recently was released. But I never knew what it was about, what kind of game it was, what platforms it was on. I was only familiar with the name. So now I'm excited to be able to, learn more about this and actually play this game.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. The graphics for it reminds me of a kind of like an SNES game, almost a little bit more souped up than the SNES graphics. But just based on the screenshots that I'm seeing here, that's sort of the aesthetic that it reminds me of. But yeah, I watched some of the gameplay trailer for it, and it looks really fun. A lot of sword-based combat going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to learn how to parry and thrust and all that fun stuff, so that way you can be eaten by a giant flying hellworm.
And in the end, isn't that what we're all trying to do in this crazy world?
Maybe for you. I don't see worms in my future anytime soon.
Alrighty, well, looking forward to that. What do you say we take a quick break? And when we return, we will blow out our throats screaming in the first ever PAR debate.
Can't wait.
Welcome back. It is time. Justin versus Chris in the first ever Press A repeatedly debate on the topic of should video game news media cover when leaks are made of upcoming games.
You're an idiot. Oh wait,
Thank you for listening to the first.
I'm sorry. Did I go a little too soon?
You did, but that's okay. Chris, why don't you start with like a brief opening statement?
Thank you, moderator. So, video game leaks. These are instances where information that ordinarily was confidential or kept tightly under wraps is somehow in some way leaked to the public at large. This could be done either intentionally or unintentionally. I would say intentionally is when somebody on the dev team or somebody involved with the development company in some way specifically tells information to a one of the reporters, either for maybe Waypoint or Eurogamer or some similar video game publication, and that information then gets leaked out there. The other way is through hackers. This is unintentional. So the development team thinks that they've got everything under tight lock and key, but then hacker comes in, exposes all this data, and floods the internet with this information.
Right, or even data mining source code when given a preview of something, like digging in and looking for stuff that isn't supposed to be released to anybody yet. Right,
and I guess the as we had framed it is in the event that one of these leaks occurs, and we've got information that is now all of a sudden out there and exposed to the public. What is media's responsibility in reporting on this leak? My opinion is that video game media has I feel like they have a responsibility to report on the news, and if any significant events are occurring in the industry, and a video game leak is a significant event. And this is not even necessarily information that relates specifically to a video game itself. Like, oh, here's gameplay details about this video game. Here are different modes. It could be related to, say, like a new console being in development, or different prices being revealed for specific games, or downloadable content, anything of that nature. And I feel like the game media companies have a responsibility to report on these leaks, especially if it's something where information is leaked unintentionally. Because say this information is now out there and in the wild, and you have no way of knowing about this. So the media reports on this leak, and all of a sudden, hey, you know that there's this information that is suddenly out there about this game that I was looking forward to. I need to be careful when perusing any information involving this game at all.
Right. Okay. Good points. I will counter with the fact that I think it's safe to assume that everybody who works for video game news media, all the journalists and coverage and everything, are people who are passionate about video games. They grew up their whole lives playing a lot of video games, developing a strong bond, a strong love for the media. And their main goal should be respecting and helping the developers that are making this thing that they love so much. Why should they blow up something that they love, that they're passionate about, that these people that they care about, these developers who they worship, why would they take it upon themselves to just basically spoil everything that they've been working on? Why would they release this information that they know these developers, these teams, these game studios do not want to get out, but to just release it to the media just for the purpose of clicks and ratings? Like that, it seems unethical, and it seems a bit dirty to me, and it seems like I look at it as a bit of a backstab and betrayal to the people who have worked so hard to give these people that work in the video games news media, a career, basically, to help develop them, to help give them something to look forward to form their passion, to really help them, not only just fall in love with games, but to cover them on their own. Like there should be kind of this unspoken bond where you're looking out for them, not trying to spoil what they've done and blow it all up for just a few clicks here and there, or to get more readers on your site. It's like, where is the trust and the respect for these people that you should be looking up to?
I don't necessarily agree that they're doing it specifically for the clicks or for the attention. They're in the media. Their role is it's sort of journalism, not just even sort of, it is journalism. Their goal and their role is to report on the news. And if information gets leaked out, that is news, and they need to be reporting on that. Now, as for information where developers will necessarily, they'll say, hey, we've got particular new game modes coming out, this is going to be really something interesting. I mean, that's a point where any journalist would say, I want to do a little bit of digging into that, and I want to see what exactly is in there. I want to see what's deeper beneath the surface there, because that is their job. Their job is not to be a mouthpiece for these developers. It is not to necessarily be on the developer's side. I mean, if there is some sort of malicious attack going on, like let's say if there was a major hack where, God forbid, employee information was leaked out, then they would have a responsibility to keep that information confidential. But for information about video games, it is their job. They are not beholden by any obligations to maintain any secrecy for this information if it gets out there.
Right. It is their job to cover the news, but I disagree. I don't think that leaks qualify as news. Is news something that isn't supposed to be known to the community? You know, like if there's a reason they don't want, that the developers don't want people to know what they're working on or what's coming up. You know, they want, the developers are trying to serve their fans, their loyal fans in their community. You know, they want to give them not only a great gaming experience, but also they want to be able to release the stuff on their own terms. They want to be able to give the fans like a nice gift, a huge surprise. Wow, like what a crazy unveil at E3. Like I never saw this coming, you know? Like, so this seems wrong for me for there to be a middleman of these, you know, video game journalists that say, oh, look at this. Let me just snatch this info away from the developers, the ones that are putting all their hard work and time into making this product. Let me take that glory from them and let me just report it on my website and spoil it for that entire team. Now, let me real quickly. I have a article that was on Nintendo Insider. This is pretty topical because this game is coming out next week. But this is a big leak story. Was when Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle was coming out. You know, it's been rumored and speculated for years, and of course we got like those leaked images that came out a few weeks before E3. And the headline of the article is the Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle leaks were hard on team morale. And you know, I'll just read a quick excerpt here. Ubisoft Milan creative director David Solani has spoken about how the leaks were hard on team morale. Not entirely because the surprise was ruined, but thanks to a largely negative reaction that the rumor mill had sparked. When the game leaks, no one is happy, he explains. Also, let's be honest, the reaction at the beginning was not skeptical. It was a little bit worse than that. So if you think about it, I know this personally because I was one of these jerks who completely written this game off as soon as I saw some of this artwork, or even before that, that's the rumors of Mario and Rabbids being together are the same thing. You know, and so when you're think of the developers here, okay, they were literally working like underground, like in like an underground office, like hidden a lot. You know, when you're a developer, you're already away from your family a long time because it requires a lot of long hours to put a game together, and you know it's a lot of hard work. They're literally they got to keep their mouths shut. They can't really talk about what they're working on. And then something gets through, and then, you know, you look online, and everybody is just reacting negatively to this game and, like, just speculating, and just, like, everything you've worked on is just kind of being, like, bled out there. And it's just, it's not fair. And, like, you know, they describe in this article, which I'll post a link to it on Twitter, it was just like a really tough time for the team to kind of get back on track and be like, all right, guys, like, you know, the wind is kind of out of our sails here, but we have to focus. We have to get this thing together and basically just, you know, buckle down and get this game to the way that we wanted it to when we first pitched it. You know, we have this idea in our heads that this game is going to work, and we just have to stick to that. And these developers should not have had to deal with that on top of everything else. It's just it's not fair.
I guess I want to point out like what necessarily is unfair about it. How did this information get leaked? What was the source for this information? Unless I'm mistaken, I believe it was somebody on the dev team who had leaked this information out there. So I don't necessarily I get that everyone is disappointed and they wanted to save the surprise for everyone out there when the game was ultimately revealed. I get that they wanted to ultimately have that surprise for a lot of their consumers out there. But the initial reaction to this game, again, like as you pointed out, was negative. So when the game was ultimately revealed at E3, a lot of people knew that the game was coming and they went into it very skeptical. But then when they actually saw the game in action and they saw the presentation, a lot of minds were changed about the game, and a lot of people decided, hey, you know what? Now that I've seen the game, how it works, what it's going to be like, I think it actually looks really cool. Would necessarily that same reaction have been the same if people were still getting over the shock of a Mario and Rabbids crossover being fresh in their minds? I mean, they had a while to process that information before the E3 show.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. Maybe this was a too specific of an example. A lot of games don't have to deal with a strong negative reaction in the first place. So again, this could be maybe too specific of an example. But let me throw another one at you. How about when Super Smash Bros. 4 was being worked on, okay, and you know how tight-lipped Sakurai is, and we all know stories of how much work him and his team put into these games. So when right before the 3DS version of the game came out, they had to send a copy to the ESRB to get a proper rating, and a leak was taken by one of the employees of the ESRB, took a screenshot of Duck Hunt Dog being in the game, which was without a doubt the biggest surprise reveal of an unlockable character in Super Smash Bros. 4, and basically blasted it all over the internet. All the news sites picked it up. They started spreading it, and like within overnight, everybody knew that Duck Hunt Dog was going to be a playable character in Super Smash Bros. And that had nothing to do with any internal leaks or anything like that. It's just like, that was something that the video game media industry should have caught that and been like, okay, we got to try and squash this to prevent this from blowing out too hard, because, it's not right. It's not right for us to spoil this huge surprise for a game that everybody's looking forward to.
But again, that is not their responsibility. That is not their job. Like, it sucks that this information got out there and it was outside of the developer's control. I mean, that's unfortunate, but that is not the job of the media. The media's job is to report on the facts and the information that is presented out to them. A lot of this information that can get leaked out there is honestly, like, it's very useful in helping the consumer. Like, I know you're taking a very, like, the media when they do this is very, like, anti-consumer, but I think these leaks are, like, they are very beneficial to the consumer, especially when the consumer has limited income and they need to vote with their wallets in terms of how they're going to spend their money. Consider that, what was it? Earlier this week, just a couple nights ago, as of when we're recording this, the SNES Classic went up for pre-order, and nobody knew about it. This was kept very tightly under wraps, and I believe it went up for pre-order at Amazon and Best Buy sometime around midnight on Monday, and then Tuesday, I think it was around around 2:00. That's when pre-orders went up for Target and Walmart, I believe, and people only became aware of that about maybe a half hour before the pre-orders actually went up. And those, unless you were one of the lucky few who just so happened to be awake at the time or were checking your phone for these pre-orders and when they went live, you were kind of too little too late.
Yeah, but you're talking about a completely different thing here. That's a pre-order release schedule thing.
But
we're talking
right,
about
and
a games being delivered. When a developer wants to announce a game, it's not like they're saying, okay, this game is out now, buy it. When they want to announce it, they still give a several month or even a year leeway to when the game is coming out.
Right. But I'm saying the point I'm trying to make is if that information about the NES Classic had gotten leaked, that is information that would have been useful to a consumer. Likewise, when there are price drops regarding certain games, certain consoles, that is information that is useful to a consumer. Because why?
Yeah,
Why?
but that's not it's not the same thing. Like
It is. It
I'm
is the
talking about
same
like
thing.
stuff getting
It's a.
spoiled. No, no. I'm talking about stuff getting spoiled, like things you don't know that's coming, and then all of a sudden, like here it is. You know, we know about the SNES Classic. We know about like of a system going to get a price drop or anything. You know, like I think we're on two different spectrums here.
I don't necessarily. I don't necessarily think we are because, like, you've got, like, you're talking about different in-game content. I suppose getting spoiled. That I mean, like different game modes, I guess, like in different weapons necessarily. Like, yeah, they'll report on those different items that are necessarily leaked, but a lot of consumers again could use that information to sort of like they can use that information to inform their own buying decisions. Like maybe there's a new game mode that a game is going to be using that was going to be a surprise, and oh, I didn't know that game mode was going to be in there. Now I'm interested, now I want to buy this game. You know, like, I think that information could be useful to a consumer to help make a more informed decision when considering which video games they want to purchase. That ultimately is that is their responsibility, and that's my chief concern here. Like, I sympathize with developers who want to keep this information under wraps and they want to provide a surprise for gamers. I like being surprised. I mean, I'm not against being surprised when there's something new or cool in a video game. Like, that's fun, but it's not the media's job to keep that stuff under wraps on behalf of the developers. That is not their responsibility.
It's just it's just a slap in the face to the developers. I think of the people that have formed these careers in video game journalism. You know, you're in video game journalism because you love playing games. So why not help these guys? You know, because like you said before, all right, if let's say someone on a development team said something they shouldn't to somebody, and that leak gets out, it's still a bummer. But like, yeah, they deserve that because that guy shouldn't have said anything. But again, there's other instances where, like, you know, the ESRB thing or like data mining, where it's completely out of control of the development team. Like it just got out there. It's unfair. Like it's not right for that stuff to be spoiled. You know, like it's so hard now with all different technology, and people are getting better and better at looking into source code and identifying things. And you know, why can't we be like, okay, we should help these guys out. You know, they're trying to keep this secret down. They want to surprise everybody. Let's not blow it up for our own favor. Let's try and help them. You know, another thing, if you're gonna cover a leak, at least put like on your headline on your website, like, here, click here if you want to see the leak. The leak, not like, oh, Duck Hot Dog is in Smash Bros. 4 as like your headline, so when you're scrolling on the website you see it immediately, even if you didn't want to, you know, because I know a lot of sites that do that too, just to get the clicks, and that is like super messed up.
That I cannot argue with. That, yeah, that is legitimately messed up. If I mean, if there are going to be spoilers out there, if information has leaked out there, then yeah, having that as like the headline blast, I mean, I that one I have to agree with you on. You can't just have that information out there and in the open for everyone to see. If they want to click on that information, and if they want to read the article, then by all means they can. And you know, again, like I feel like this is just a fundamental disagreement we have regarding what exactly the media's role is. I do know that there are a lot of members of the video game media who, like, they have gone on to game development, and they, vice versa. Game developers have gone into media. I think it was Greg Kasavin with he used to be the editor in chief at GameSpot, who he's now a game dev, and he's actually worked on Bastion, Transistor, Pyre,
Right.
those games. So there are, you're right, there are people on both sides of the aisle who kind of know what it's like from both perspectives.
Yeah.
And I mean, having said that, like, I know there has been discussion before. Like, I know it was a few weeks back on Waypoint Radio. They actually got a question specifically related to this exact topic that we're debating right now. And so help me, I tried looking for this clip because I wanted to hear what they had to say about it in response, but I could not find it, much to my dismay. But if I remember right, they had mentioned how, like, when they have that information, they do feel that responsibility to report on a lot of this information if they feel like it will be beneficial for a consumer to know this information. Now, they do foster these relationships with game developers because they have to. I think, like, Kotaku, several years, like, not several, but a couple years ago, they were actually blacklisted by Bethesda from covering a lot of their games because they went too far, I believe, in their reporting on different information that I believe may have leaked out. And that is, that's part of it too, is you need to be able to foster these relationships without necessarily abusing one another. So I think it was Patrick Klepek who mentioned that, like, they will go back to the devs and they'll, like, confirm if this information is out there or whatnot. And Waypoint will ultimately make a judgment call on, is this something that consumers would benefit from knowing? Is this something that is going to help inform their decision making? Like, they go to the developers just to confirm whether or not this information is true or if it's out there. There's a lot of times where certain information like that is leaked to them may not necessarily be true, or maybe they are given false information that's leaked out just to throw them off the track, so to speak. I mean, they do not go through this. They don't just, like, here's information. Responsible journalists do not just get this information and then post it out there just willy-nilly for the clicks. I mean, yes, there are publications out there that do that, but they are not doing their due diligence. They are not acting within the spirit of their profession. Their role is to help inform the consumer and aid them in their own purchasing power so that they can make better decisions on which video games that they ultimately want to buy.
I just don't see how something like Duck Hunt Dog as a playable character in Super Smash Brothers can help a consumer confirm whether or not they want to buy the game or not. You know? Like, the idea that this Mario and Rabbids game is coming out, like, if you're spoiling a game that's coming out or how a game works or what it's doing, I just don't see how that will make someone think, oh, well, maybe I should buy this game or not. Because, again, the developers, when they're ready to release the information, they will, and it will be plenty of time and a lot of coverage leading up to when the game actually comes out. So these early spoilers that are, like, basically killing the surprise, I don't know, I just don't see how any of that can help a customer or, a reader basically decide whether or not they want that game.
Right. And I mean, I guess my final point that I want to make is this, like, There's a lot of information out there that, I mean, we don't necessarily, I guess, expect to like sway any decisions one way or another. I mean, there may be people out there who are like, "Ooh, Duck Hunt Dog is in Smash Brothers. That's really cool. That's awesome. I haven't played Duck Hunt in forever. That gets me feeling nostalgic. Maybe okay, I'll want to get Smash Brothers. That who you never know. That it's not probably going to be a significant number of people who may be swayed by that information, but it may just be enough to sway them in one particular direction, knowing that this information is out there. And I mean, is that necessarily to say, oh, all video game information should just be put out there right away so that like there are no secrets, no surprises? No. I mean, you have to keep a lid on a lot of different things, and I'm not saying, you need to blow the lid off of everything, but I'm just saying that if this information gets out there and if it's information that can help the average consumer make a good decision, then it's something that I feel like the media should be able to report on.
What I think a lot of it is that I'm sure there are a lot of sites and a lot of journalists who don't want to spoil things, but on the other side, there are a lot of sites that do, because it's a huge story when something is spoiled, and people will go there and they will read it. And if you don't cover that on your site, your readers are going to go somewhere else to read that story. So I think a lot of people who don't want to do it kind of feel forced from a business perspective that is something that they have to cover. And I mean, in my opinion, it's a huge bummer. I just feel like these developers will work so hard to keep a surprise for you, for the reader. We want to surprise you, but just sometimes things happen that are completely out of their control, and then all that joy that they could have had surprising you is gone when 1,000 different video game coverage sites just kind of take that away from you. And, like the Rabbids team had to deal with that low morale and everything. In my opinion, it's sad. Like, you put so much work into just trying to bring joy to people, and to have that taken away from you, whether you deserve it or not, it's just a huge bummer.
And I mean, I understand like they're upset about the information being leaked, but I mean, is it necessarily sucking all the joy out of the development that they've had for that game? I mean, people haven't yet had a chance to play the game. The game is, as of this recording, I believe it's going to be coming out not early, but later next week. So people are going to have a chance to actually play the game for the first time. A lot of people right now are really looking forward to the game. They're really excited to play it. I would think that knowing that and ultimately getting positive reviews back for this game is going to be what ultimately determines the morale for the dev team in regards to their development for this game.
Oh, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, that's all they really care about, is if the game sells and if people like it. But I feel like the people that work on the game should be the ones able to, tell everybody about it, But I guess there's really not much you can do about it.
That ultimately is video game media. If they start resorting to these clickbaity headlines and these clickbaity tactics, then you simply just stop giving them your clicks. You just move on to different websites, especially if they start using these methods over and over again. And ultimately, they're either going to lose all of their traffic and go under, or they're going to adapt and become responsible journalists, and they're going to do they're going to do the proper thing to earn people's respect again. There is no middle ground. You can't exist in the middle there. If you're going to be a journalist, you're either going to be clickbaity or you're going to be responsible.
It's tough, because sometimes being responsible doesn't get you the the clicks that you want, and it's like a fine line you have to cross. And this is a tough topic because I can see both sides, and I don't know. I just hope that things can maybe developers can learn more from this to be more tight-lipped or just kind of back up their source code in different ways to try and prevent a lot of this stuff because it can be done. I mean, there's plenty of games that surprised us, like Monster Hunter World at E3 was a huge surprise that nobody saw coming, and Capcom's known for having a lot of leaks, so it is still possible. It's just, I guess, it's one of those topics where it's just kind of how you look at it. Whatever side you're on, you're going to think that's right, and that's fine because you can see positives in both and negatives in both.
Right. And, I mean, the issues with clickbait, I mean, that's something that that's something every genre is dealing with all over the internet. And it's not just a video game issue. And, I mean, yeah, hopefully it's something that they can figure out. But ultimately, I feel like the journalists, they need to do what is in the best interest of the consumer.
All right. Well, let's take a breath and shake hands. That was a good debate.
It was a good debate. Yeah, we didn't claw each other's eyes out. We didn't call each other's, a stupid idiot.
Throw things at each other or schedule an airstrike to attack on the other person's residence.
Right. We didn't break down into, sobs, screaming how the other screaming, "You hate me."
It's a relationship debate.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes, sometimes people argue.
If you want to weigh in on this, maybe you think who won the debate or just give your own opinion, please email us at parpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to talk about it on a future episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you have any thoughts or if you have any input, please shoot us an email. We're actually going to have a Twitter poll a couple days after this episode goes up. So if you want to weigh in there too, please, by all means. And the email again is parpodcast@gmail.com. And that's all one word.
Also, if you have any ideas for any upcoming debates we could do, please let us know. I believe right now that was the only one that we had on our docket. We could get some more when we think of some more ideas a little bit later, but we'd love to hear yours as well.
Yes, absolutely. We'd like to have our own Splatfest on this show without the actual splatting.
Those are always good debates. I mean, even the next one of flying versus being a creeper.
Yes, which, team flying, #team flying all the way.
Great job, man. That was a really good discussion, I think.
Yeah, it was. And, I mean, there's certainly more ground to cover there. I think we're each still very steadily entrenched in our own opinions here, but I feel like it was a worthy discussion, a worthy debate. Got to see both sides, and definitely helps you understand, helps you refine your own argument more to kind of have these sorts of debates. So they're really important, not just for here, but in a lot of facets of life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think that's about going to wrap it up for this week. Remember, Press A repeatedly posts new episodes at iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review the show or tell your friends about us. It helps other people find the podcast and will really help us grow. And thank you to all who have rated, reviewed, and subscribed so far. We love you.
Mwah. You can follow us on our Facebook page and Instagram at Press A Repeatedly. We're also on Twitter at Press A Repeatedly. I'm at cgold113. Justin is at oaf7724. And again, please email us at parpodcast, all one word, at gmail.com. That's all for this episode. Chris and Justin signing off. And remember, to slime your way to freedom through the excrement fields, press A repeatedly.
Ugh, the excrement fields. Don't go there on vacation.
No, do. Just wear a gas mask.